and extend it to the private housing stock. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, some of the old, cold and mouldy state houses the Minister referred to were in my electorate. And they were old, and they were cold, and they were mouldy, and they did need some work. Phil Heatley came in and demolished them. Demolished them completely, and the land is now empty. And the land has stayed empty since he demolished them. And anybody who wanted to move into a state house would have to ring up his 0800 number and wait and wait and wait to get into a house that Phil Heatley had demolished. Gone completely. Didn't fix the problem, just demolished the houses. Left the land empty. Demolished. Gone. So I guess that's one way to solve the problem, isn't it? Just demolish the houses. Forget about the people that live there. Forget about anybody else. Forget about anybody who might need some state housing. Just demolish the houses. Leave the land empty. And now his latest solution is to sell the land. Sell it off. Sell it off. So that's another way to deal with it, I guess. Demolish the houses and sell the land off. Doesn't actually help the people who were living in those old, cold and mouldy state houses. Does not help them one bit at all. In fact, it makes them potentially homeless. So if someone's living in their car now, under Phil Heatley, they can't go to a Housing New Zealand office anymore. They need to ring an 0800 number. So this person who's living in a car is supposed to have a phone and ring an 0800 number that they are going to wait, oh that's right, yeah, because someone living in their car is very likely to have a car phone, and they are going to have to wait for about at least 40 minutes before someone answers that call, if in fact the call gets answered. This is a person living in their car. That's Phil Heatley's idea of solving New Zealand's housing problems. I think that speaks for itself. Mr. Speaker, this is a government that is interested in governing for today and for the benefit of people like them. It is not a government that is interested in governing for a better future for all New Zealanders. And this budget screamed that out loud. It's about making short-term decisions that will benefit people like them, regardless of the impact those decisions are going to have on the future of this country. They've cut funding successively in the time that they have been in the government to early childhood education. To early childhood education, they have continued to cut funding for early childhood education, even though all of the research says that kids who get quality early childhood education are more likely to succeed later on in the system. And in this budget, what they did was they punished people in New Zealand, hard-working Kiwis who are at the bottom of the ladder and are trying to pull themselves up. They got punished by this government. The paper boys, well, we wouldn't have cut the tax credit for the paper boys. A measure that saved very little money, but sent a message to the paper boys: don't work hard to try and get ahead, don't work hard to make your life better, because you'll be punished by this national government, People who are from relatively modest backgrounds, who want to do tertiary education study, particularly at postgraduate level, or maybe a medical degree, which takes many years to complete, they are going to have their eligibility for a student allowance taken away. What it says is that if someone is from a family with means, who can support them through their tertiary study, they should think about a program of study that's going to be greater than 4 years. They should think about medicine, they should think about dentistry, those other sorts of programs that take more than 4 years. But if you're from a poor family, a family who cannot afford to support you for 5, 6, 7 years of tertiary study, don't bother applying. Because this government are not interested in providing support to those people. What they are basically saying about tertiary education is that it should return to being the preserve of the people on the highest incomes and who come from families of means. And forget about the low-income families who want to make a better life for themselves and for any children that they might have. No. This government aren't interested one jot in them. They are content to make life much more difficult for them and to pull the ladder up so that they don't get the chance to work hard and make a better life for themselves. Perhaps the best example of the short-sightedness of this government's budget, the zero budget that we have seen from this government, has been the changes that they have made to class sizes. This is a government that are arguing that we can improve the outcomes of our education system by putting more kids into every class. That's what they're trying to tell New Zealanders. And every parent and every teacher knows, they know that that simply is wrong. This must be the only government in the world that thinks that we will get a better outcome from our education system by putting more kids into every class. And they not only have they made that rather draconian decision, but they have totally failed to consider the detailed implications of the policies that have gone through Cabinet. They took a Cabinet paper through that reduced the number of teachers in years 7 and 8 in intermediate schools without one Cabinet Minister at any point asking to see a list of the schools that would be affected by that change. Not one minister at any point thought, gosh, do we think we should actually look at what this might mean for real, actual schools? Nobody, not one of those 20 Cabinet Ministers, including the Minister of Education, thought that it would be a good idea to look at what the actual impact of the policy that they were voting for, that they were approving, and that they put in the budget was going to have on actual schools. Not one. 20 Cabinet Ministers, and not one of them asked for an analysis of the actual impact of the policy, including the Prime Minister, who then tried to deny he knew anything about it, despite the fact that he chairs the Cabinet that approved the policy that was put forward by Hikia Parata, the Minister of Education, who clearly didn't understand it. That is simply atrocious government. It is incompetence at the highest level of our government, and it should not be allowed to stand or to go unchecked. It should not be allowed to go unchecked. I have here newsletters from the intermediate schools in my electorate pointing out what these changes would mean for them. The one from Ferguson Intermediate that is headed up very clearly, budget cuts will cripple intermediate schools. And the principal there talks about the horror of these details is that they showed a devastating cut to the staffing of intermediate schools. He states very clearly, and I'll quote directly from this, "Our choice will be to abandon the technology, arts, specialist teacher positions or retain these positions and lose at least 3 classroom teachers." And then further on through the newsletter, he points out that the result of losing those 3 classroom teachers would be that students would end up in classes of 38. 38 students. So either forget about doing woodwork, metalwork and those other sort of subjects and the technology subjects, or end up in a class of 38. And the thing is, the cap that the Minister has applied is a total hoax, because it only lasts for 3 years and then the new ratios are going to kick in anyway. So it doesn't actually solve the problem, it simply delays the implementation of it. Intermediate schools are being done over. I'll read from a newsletter from Maidstone Intermediate. From Maidstone Intermediate, the idea that increasing class sizes will improve the quality of education for your child is difficult to comprehend. That's a direct quote from the principal of Maidstone Intermediate. He points out that a whole lot of the extra activities that parents and students really value will be put at risk by this policy. And again, I'll quote, "The whole nature of what intermediates provide is under threat. Opportunities such as winter sport, personal development options, stage challenge, computer extension groups, kapahaka would all cease to operate because we would not have the staffing to sustain these programs." That's John Key and Hikia Parata's vision of a better education system. How is that possibly raising the standard of education in this country? And this government claims to care about standards of education. It does not raise the standard of education in New Zealand to put more and more kids into the same classes. And I'll go back to quoting from the principal from Ferguson Intermediate because I think he puts it very well. "Teacher quality will not improve with higher class numbers. Student learning will not improve with higher class numbers. Student engagement, particularly for students who enjoy and excel in hands-on learning, will not remain at the current high level when all of those options are gone from their schooling." And that is the reality that they will face under this national government. Heke Parata's cap on this policy makes it very clear. Those New Zealanders who care about the future of education will have to vote for a change of government if they don't want to see massively bigger class sizes in 3 years' time when that cap is removed.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member Dr.